Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag podcast for the betting show. Adam, we're back again. We've done our awards. We're into week one. The proper stuff. We're back with the Franchise Tag 5, our touchdown scorers. You've got a few more little things for us. There's 2 games already been played. Your Packers played last night. We saw the Chiefs and the Ravens in a very tight game. Are you excited that football's back?
Oh yeah, I'm really excited now that my quarterback's broken. Yeah, brilliant. What more could I want? No, it should be fun. I'm looking forward to the fact that we've got our Sundays back, and hopefully we'll get some winners. That's what we're looking for. So that should be good. But yeah, it's good to have it back. Just let's not go back to Brazil, eh? It didn't end well, did it?
Nah, just sing some more in Europe, and we can go to that.
Exactly.
That's a lot better. Or Canada, go to Canada. I wouldn't mind a holiday to Canada. That'd be all right for me. Yeah. Right. Should we jump straight into what is becoming a slightly altered new section of the show, where I'm going to pick 5 games that I've got my money on, and you're going to tell me as the expert whether I've got it right or whether I've got it very wrong. We'll jump straight into it, Adam. I'll bring up the odds just in case people want to see them. But first up, I have gone for the Chicago Bears at home against the Titans to win by minus 3.5. Adam, how do you feel about this game?
Yeah, I think that. So, like you say, they're minus 3.5 favourites with the Bears. Obviously, new quarterback Caleb Williams. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. I feel like with this game specifically, it's going to be about that. There's a lot of excitement behind the Bears, and they're at home, and I think their fans are going to get really behind them. And we saw, didn't we, last year, how their defense did improve, and I think that's a really big thing. Like, the defense improved; it looked better. I think it'll have a pretty solid year this year. And then obviously on the offense with Caleb Williams, they've gone out, they've got themselves Keenan Allen, they've gone and drafted Rome Odunze as well. They already had some decent weapons in DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. So they've got some solid offensive weapons there. When it comes to the Titans, obviously under new head coach Brian Callahan, I think it's going to be very different to what it was when they had Mike Vrabel there. Derrick Henry has obviously gone, and he's kind of been replaced with Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears who was there last year. That kind of feels very much more pass catching kind of guys, rather than sort of like just keep running it down the middle and sort of like score that way. They've gone and got themselves Calvin Ridley as well. So I think we're going to be seeing quite a lot of passing rather than the running that they had with Henry. I feel all of that is probably going to take a bit of time to gel and for them to get used to that. And so, although Caleb Williams' first game, it will take him a little bit of time as well. I just think with all that good feeling, them being at home, going against a team that is going to take time to get to know what they're doing as well, I do like the Bears to win this. I don't think the 3.5 is that bad either. I think it's a fairly solid scoreline for them to be able to win by. So, yeah, I quite like the 3.5.
Yeah, I mean, when I picked it, I was like, I'm quite confident in that. I think the Bears are going to be good this year. I think Caleb Williams is going to be good straight off the bat. He's been there, he's done it, he's carried a team. He wasn't on one of the big college teams that sort of blew teams out every single week. He was in the mix in proper games and showcasing what he can do. So I think he's ready. I'm not, but then on second thoughts, I'm like, have I got on the hype train too early on this? There's a lot of people going, yeah, Bears are going to be great. They're going to win a load of games. And am I overlooking the fact that I think the Titans aren't going to be as good because they haven't got Derrick Henry? And are the Titans as bad as I think, or do you think the Titans are being overlooked at their ability?
I think the Titans are going to be better than what a lot of people think they're going to be, because they're not taking into account that it's just going to be a different form of offense. I think they're just thinking, oh, Derrick Henry's gone, it's all going to fall apart. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be a much more Yeah, I'm not saying that Mike Vrabel was sort of like an old-fashioned style coach, but I think Brian Callahan is definitely going to be a bit more sort of like new style, kind of like a lot more pass heavy. Some RPOs are going to be thrown in there a lot more than what it was with the Titans. So I think that it's just going to be different rather than worse in that respect. But I do feel it's going to take them time. I love the Bears to win. I do think they can get the 3.5. I think it probably will be closer than what a lot of people are saying. The over-under's 44.5, so it's kind of like it's a sort of decent score game, but not fantastic. Yeah, I think the Bears at -3.5. I think they will have the potential. And to me, I think like the Titans, for me, I think they're going to be a team that are probably going to finish last in their division this year, going to need that time to sort of build up and sort of like redevelop their whole way of playing. The Bears, I think they've already got that defense. It's funny. I feel like with the Bears, Justin Fields came in and then they built the team after he came in. But now the team is built and it works for Caleb Williams kind of thing. So I think Caleb Williams is coming in at exactly the right time for it, where that defense will be like solid and there are weapons for him as well. So I think because of all of that, the -3.5 isn't a bad bet.
I mean, I wish I'd wrote down the stats so I can remember it in my head, but first round overall pick quarterbacks winning in week 1. I don't think the success rate was quite high.
It's not. It really isn't that high, but it's one of them things where I would argue that no first round or first pick quarterback has had this sort of situation since FTAG. So that's where I think it's different, and so not many quarterbacks who come into a team at the first pick have got DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and who is considered a very good wide receiver coming out of this draft in Rome Odunze as well. So it's to have them 3 guys. And also like Swift, I'm not saying he's going to be amazing this season, but I think he's a solid running back as well. So to have that option as well.
2 solid backups as well. I rate Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson as well. I think they're both capable. And the defense is stacked as well. We saw how good the defense was last year. So
yeah, the biggest problem for the Bears is going to be the O-line. That's going to be the problem. But as you said, that wasn't a problem for Caleb Williams at USC last year. So, you know, he should be okay.
My next one I've picked is the LA Chargers -3 at home. First game for Jim Harbaugh back in the NFL. I think he's been given a nice bit of a schedule week 1 going against the Raiders. I think although they've lost all their wide receivers, they did bring back a lot of the defenders. I thought they drafted quite well. Their running back room, if it's healthy, on paper could be very, very good. And I think the Raiders are still not quite there yet with their quarterback. Yes, Gardner Minshew did a good job at the Colts, but he did it behind a good O-line with an offensive coordinator in a division that wasn't very strong. And now he's at the Raiders. I think it's just going to be harder with a defensive coordinator. And, you know, Adams is already looking like he's a bit disgruntled before the season starts. Already trade rumors happening. So I think this is a real nice first game for Harbaugh, and I think he gets it done, and I think he does it more than a field goal. Adam, your thoughts on this one?
This is out of the 5. This is probably the one that scares me the most. Yeah, with the Chargers. The reason being is I think that this is, when it comes to Jim Harbaugh, we know how he plays. It's going to be run heavy, isn't it? And the idea is that it's going to go out to the tight ends and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be interesting because, and the reason I say that this is the one that scares me the most is that with the Raiders, I think if you're going to be a run-heavy team, you've got to somehow now get past not only Max Crosby, but Christian Wilkins as well. So you've got yourself some decent D-line there. So I think that the Raiders' defense is going to be okay. I don't think it'll be too bad. That's what it's going to be. It's kind of going to be that sort of like, can the run game get past that D-line and be able to move them? That's why it kind of scares me a little bit. I think that both teams obviously, like, you know, I'm not going to say that Gardner Minshew is better than Justin Herbert. I think that Justin Herbert is clearly the better quarterback, but I just don't think he's going to be used as much as what we've seen him used before. So it's going to be a slightly odd game in that respect. I know that, as you're saying, Devontae Adams is a bit disgruntled. I still think it's Devontae Adams. He's still going to turn up and he's still going to be great because that's what he is. If anything, he's probably incentivized to be great to try and get out of there. So it's like, I don't think that will be so much of an issue. And when it comes to the Chargers, I think that Jim Harbaugh is going to do great things for them over time, but there's still a lot of problems on that defense. I don't think it's as great as what some people are saying it is. I think it's going to struggle a little bit. Yeah, it's the one that scares me out of them all. I can see the Chargers winning it. I just don't know if they'll get the -3. I know it's not a particularly high line, but I could see this almost being I could almost see this being a 3-point game, which is probably exactly why they've put it at that line. The one thing that I'm really looking forward to in this one, Joel coming up against Max Crosby. That's going to be a battle of the giants. That one, so that will be very, very interesting to see. But yeah, I like I say, I think the Chargers will win it. I'm not sure if they get more than 3 though over it.
Well, we got the joy of watching Justice Hill try and block Chris Jones the other day. That was
Yeah.
that was entertaining. This is a slightly different matchup, but yeah, you say that Joel's playing right tackle. You know, you've got to remember you talked about how good the D line was for the Raiders. You know, Rashawn Slater, Zion Johnson, and now Joel. It's a strong O line they're going up against, and also you mentioned the defense. Do you not think with a defense that's got the likes of Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Asante Samuel Jr., Derwin James, Christian Fulton, Poona Ford. Do you not think now they've got Jesse Minter in there, who has come from the Ravens defense and then he spent time with Harbaugh at Michigan, that if anyone can get the best out of these superstars, which is what some of those names are, it could be this guy.
I was going to say there's a lot of names on that defense, and that's all it's really been over many years. It's just a lot of names. Yeah, I think that he probably could. The only thing I'm going to say is, as we have seen in these 2 games that have already been, clearly, you know, I mean, last night defense didn't exist that much. Yeah, it's like, and this is what I mean. It's like, I think just because it's week 1, that's where the problem is. I think in time he will. I'm just not sure whether he'll suddenly get them being amazing on the first game.
Okay, yeah, it's going to be a tough one. That one, you know, it's only 3. It's not the 0.5, so you know, it's a push if it's only a field goal.
If it was 2.5, I'd love it, because obviously you can get within the field goal. But because it's 3, like you say, it'd end up being a push, and that's where it's just a bit of a shame.
Next one up is the Miami Dolphins, -3.5 at home. Again, a lot of home teams on this one against the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's the start of the season. The weather's going to be fine in Miami, so it's not going to be cold. They brought back a lot of the same names on offense, isn't it? Pretty much what we're looking at. Defense has changed slightly with a few big names going, a few names coming in. Jags this season, I've got a big question mark against them. They're anticipated to be good this year. They've been disappointing to me the last couple of years. They've just missed out. They've just not quite been good enough. And I think that Miami offense is just explosive enough to beat them to points. I think this might be a race to points in the game potentially. So I think that there's a possibility they could win it by a touchdown, which is why I've taken the -3.5, thinking that might be enough to get this one done.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised it's -3.5. I'm surprised it's not a bit higher, and the fact that it's even money at -3.5 as well, I quite like the look of. I'm not sold on the Jags at all this year. I think I kind of hope they'll be better than what they were. I think they've missed their window. I think the Texans have now taken that division over. and that they won't be.
And Colts are looking better as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, Colts will be strong as well. And this is the thing, like, it almost feels like the Jags, they had that sort of little period of time where you felt like, yeah, they're going to win the division, they can do something. Now, to me, it feels like they're going to struggle to come second. So I feel like it's not quite worked. The whole Calvin Ridley experiment didn't really work for them. I think that was a bit of a shame. So yeah, I'm not sold on them at all this year. I think Brian Thomas will be good for them in time. I actually think he might be good for them in this game because the Miami defense isn't fantastic. So I think that he might have a decent game this week. But yeah, I feel like if you're going to end up in a shootout, there's only one team that's going to win it, and I think that might be what ends up happening at the beginning, and then the Dolphins just pull away.
Yeah, I thought this was quite a safe bet. Like you say, at the odds as well. We move on to the next game. It's the Buffalo Bills. Now, this one, I was like, you know what? I'm still confident the Bills are going to be really, really good. Josh Allen is still there. He's not gone anywhere. There's some of the best quarterbacks in football win championships without a plethora of fantastic wide receivers. You know, we've seen Mahomes do it. We've seen Brady do it. Why can't we see Josh Allen do it as well? You know, they lost one player. And during that period that Stefan Diggs on the back end of last year where he was really poor, that's when they started winning games, and that's when they started getting back in the division and to win the division. So that's all that's gone from that offense, and I think they've brought in some nice pieces on that offense. I know a lot of people are saying there's no superstar, but you know they only need to get a bit out of some people in there. So I think it's still going to be good enough. They use James Cook a lot more. That seemed to work well. They brought in Ray Davis, who looks like he could complement him as well. McDermott is defensive minded. He'll get that defense clicking against an Arizona Cardinals team that is rebuilding. It's brought in some really nice pieces. Kyler Murray's back and healthy. Marvin Harrison Jr., yes, is good, but I just don't think there's enough on that team to compete with the Bills at the moment for me. So I think they can win this by more than a touchdown.
Yeah, I think that it's actually kind of a little bit of a similar one to the Dolphins Jags game in respect of if it does. I'm not saying it will be a shootout because the Bills, I don't think they really operate in that way. But I think the Bills have got more about them in order to be able to like you say, win by a touchdown. Yes, they still have a quality offense. They're not, you saw at the end of the season last year how good they were under their new OC, and Diggs was there, but he didn't really do a lot.
It was really poor, wasn't it? Everyone
So
the graphics out and the stats out. He did nothing in that back end of the season.
So I think the fact that he's not there isn't necessarily going to be a massive loss now that they want to play in this other way. Like you say, James Cook, Ray Davis, I think Dalton Kincaid is going to be huge for them. I think he'll have a really big season for them as well. And they do have some solid wide receivers, even if you don't think about Keon Coleman because he's a rookie. They have got Khalil Shakir there. They have got some.
Samuel will be good.
Yeah, exactly. So they've got a couple of sort of guys there who have now been around certainly Curtis Samuel been around for a while. Khalil Shakir's been around for a couple of years. I think they're going to be fine on offense. And as you say, defensively, they're always pretty solid. So I think they'll be okay. Cardinals going to be one of the most exciting teams to watch this year. I think they're the team. If there's any team that you want to sort of like target when it comes to betting on both sides for them and whoever they're playing, it's going to be the Cardinals this year. The offense is very exciting. I think Marvin Harrison's going to be really good. I think James Conner will do what James Conner normally does. So offensively, I think they'll be pretty solid. And defensively, they're still a bit of a mess. They've brought in some young players, but they are still a bit of a mess. And it's going to take a while, I think, for them to be able to really sort of like kick on in that area. So yeah, I think that as you say, what will probably happen is I reckon they'll probably be quite close, but the Bills defense will get them over the line, and that will probably be enough in order to win by a touchdown. So yeah, I think the I think the Bills in this one is a decent one.
Yeah, I just don't think there's enough in that front seven for the Cardinals to get enough pressure on Josh Allen to really make a difference. There's no standout superstars like we've been talking about in some of the other teams in that front seven for me.
It's just going to take them time. I think that they're sort of like they're them players that you need to develop, and it's just going to take time, and it's going to take a couple of seasons for them to be really good. And they've still got quite a lot of draft capital for next year as well. And I think that's kind of what the aim was. It was always very much like they knew they were going to struggle last year. This year we're going to use loads of draft capital, bring lots of young players in, and then I think the idea is that you develop them and keep that going, and then in say like a year or two's time you're going to be really good. And I think that's kind of what they're hoping for. So yeah, that's why now it just won't work for now at the moment.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised. I've heard a lot of people say that this game is probably going to be a lot closer and Cardinals are going to be a lot better in it. But I just can't see it myself. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my gut feeling with this one. So far, I think you've agreed with all, but you're worried about the Chargers one. This is going quite well.
Yeah. It's not. I mean, yeah, it's almost like you know what you're doing. Yeah, it's worrying, isn't it?
The trouble is, I know I've got one more to go. This is week one. You got to remember, I find this the hardest week to predict out of any when you're putting money on it, because any of these games you're looking at going, yeah, they look good. The spread looks decent. They should do that. But we're talking about like if these teams are clicking in the middle of the year, then those odds are fantastic at -3. At the start of the season, it could go down to a field goal. The last one I've got is another home game. It's Tampa Bay Buccaneers -3.5 going up against the Washington Commanders. I think the Buccaneers obviously were one of the better teams in their division last year. I know they've lost their offensive coordinator, but they've brought back Mike Evans, Chris Godwin's still there. Jalen McMillan's been brought in, so there's not much changed on the wide receivers. Cade Otton's there. White was used a hell of a lot last year, and they've now been complemented by Bucky Irvin. Baker Mayfield did well, so I think on offensively, Graham Barton in the middle as well. You could play anywhere, as you loved him. I think offensively, it's going to look pretty similar. I know they've lost their offensive coordinator, but I think it's still going to look pretty similar to last year, if not better, because they might use White less and throw the ball more. I don't know. They might not just dump it off to him for catches. But yeah, I just think the Commanders, although we think they'll improve this year, they lost a hell of a lot of names on defense. And Jaden Daniels is a rookie, and they've not got loads of weapons in the receiving game. They've just lost Jahan Dotson as well. Yes, they'll be better, but would they be better straight off the bat week one? I don't think so. I think Buccaneers, a lot of experienced names, a lot of names come back. I think they're just more suited for week one football than the Commanders maybe. So I like the 3.5.
Yeah, I think you're pretty much right on it. Really, I don't see much much change coming out of the Bucs in this one. I think they're a pretty solid unit. I think the defense is very solid and has been for quite a while under Todd Bowles. The offense, as you say, Dave Canales has gone over to the Panthers now, but they've brought in Liam Cohen. It's going to be very much about whether he can maintain rather than change anything that much. As you say, they've pretty much brought everyone back from on the offense, and it was an okay offense. It wasn't fantastic, but it was pretty solid, and it did all right. And I think that's solid is probably going to be the word for the Bucs this year. Again, with the Commanders, a little bit like the Cardinals, I think it's just going to take them a bit of time. Like you said, with the defensive players, there's a lot of them that aren't. They lost a lot and they're new, so it's going to take a bit of time there. So I think the Bucs can exploit that, especially with the likes of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, who've got the experience to do it. And I think Jaden Daniels is going to be a really exciting quarterback this year. I think it'll be really interesting to see what he can do and how good he is. And I think that he's probably probably one of the most exciting quarterbacks that they've had in Washington for a very long time. So I think in time, people like Terry McLaurin will have someone really, really good to get the ball from. But at the moment, I think again, it's going to take time, and it's not something for week one. And I think they're probably going to be schooled a little bit in this game by the experience of the Bucks. And so, yeah, I like the -3.5. I think it's a good line. I think the Bucks to win by a touchdown is probably likely here. And again, it's another home game, isn't it? I do think in week one, I think that makes a difference as well, and maybe not so much when you start seeing how good these teams are against other teams, but when it's like this and there's a lot of like teams developing and getting used to things, because again, with very little preseason in respect of like the starters, it kind of almost feels like this becomes the preseason game in order for them to get up to speed. So yeah, I like the Bucks.
Yeah, if you're marking McLaurin out the game, you double team him. Are you asking the likes of maybe Luke McCaffrey to be the big name in this receiving game, who's the rookie? Is that the one you think might be the danger man there after McLaurin?
Yeah, I think it probably will be. I mean, obviously, Jahan Dotson's gone now. Logan Thomas isn't there anymore. I think Zach Ertz is going to be used a lot in this game, which, I can see him doing his famous catch and fall down. So, yeah, I think you're going to get quite a bit of that going on. But to be honest, I think a lot of it is probably going to come down to the likes of Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler in the run game, and Jaden Daniels himself. So, and I think that might be I think that what is going to be what a lot of it will be.
I think week one, especially going up against what is a decent front seven from the Buccaneers, I'd like to see him not run as much, because I don't want to see him, because you've seen him run at college. He might still have it in his head. I'll run and I'll dive forwards and I won't slide. I don't want to see him get injured. As a Giants fan, they're in our division. I really don't want to see him get injured.
Well, the concern for him is the same concern for Anthony Richardson, isn't it? It's the same thing.
He's not as big as Anthony Richardson.
Daniels is about, 25, 30 pounds smaller than Anthony Richardson. So that's the concern. So, yeah, he's got to be careful. He's got to learn to slide properly. I mean, that was one thing that I noted in college. And I was like, what are you doing? You're just diving forward. You're going to end up getting killed. It's insane. But, yeah, I mean, he's got to learn to do that. And hopefully they've taught him that. And he doesn't need to run either. He can pass the ball really, really well. He doesn't need to just constantly run all the time. But obviously, it's a big part of his game.
Yeah. Well, that fivefold, Adam, the FTAG5, we're calling it, 25-1. We'll track them every week. We'll see how many I get right. We'll see how I do across the season. Hopefully, I can start off well with a week one. Hopefully get some ticks on there, even if it doesn't all come in. But, just getting some ticks would be nice. Adam, was there a game, you said the Chargers, you were a bit unsure, you're 50-50. Is there one game that you think I might have missed from this bet? And which one did you really like?
Yeah, so I get why you've not gone for it, because you think a bit more of the Colts than what I do, but I do like the Texans -2.5. I like, part of the reason I like it is that it's within the field goal. But the other thing is, I just think they are better. I think the Texans are better all round than the Colts. Not by a lot, but just a little bit. And I think that's enough to get a field goal win out of it. I think they've improved on the defense. Danielle Hunter coming in, I think it's going to be great for them to have him and Will Anderson on either side. I think it's going to be massive. The offense has improved. I know that we said that Diggs didn't do much at the Bills, but I think he's going to be all right. He's he seems pretty happy. That seems to be one of the big problems with Diggs. If he's not happy, he doesn't do much, and if he is happy, he does quite a lot. And he seems pretty happy at the moment. They've brought in Joe Mixon as well as a running back, so I think that will improve their running game. And they had a really good offense anyway, didn't they? So to add them two guys to it, I think is good. the biggest issue with the Colts is always going to be the same thing. Can Anthony Richardson stay fit? Is he going to be all right? Is he going to maybe not run as much and pass the ball a bit more and is he more accurate than what he was before because his accuracy was a little bit off? That's going to be the concern. And although I think the Colts are going to be a very solid team and a team that they do have a chance of getting in the playoffs, I just think in this particular game, I feel like the Texans are just that little bit better in all areas.
Yeah, I suppose that what's odd about this game is that wasn't minus 2.5, I think, when I put my bet on. I did it a few days ago.
Okay.
I think that's come in slightly. I don't think any of them, other than the Vikings Giants game, was under 3. So that would suggest to me that there's a lot of people putting their money on the Colts to cover in this one if it's come down that way. It's the unexpected. It's Shane Steichen's a fantastic head coach. He's going to draw something good up, and there is the possibility that Anthony Richardson could be, he could go off on one. It could be fantastic. It's just that unexpected. It's week 1. It's in division. I think week 1 in division games, I think there's something like, I don't know, like 70% of the underdogs win, not win, cover the spread, I should say. So I think it's just one. I'm like, I think the Texans will win. I think they should win quite comfortably and well. I just don't want to put my money on it because I'm worried about it being in division and that unexpected with the fact that Shane Steichen is an offense genius. So that's
No, I can see why. I mean, I just think that it's one of them where it's not far off. I feel like because it's minus 2.5 and it's maybe like you say, it's if the money has come in for the Colts and it is a little bit, it was more before, then to me, I would say that's now overreacted then, because the fact that it's gone to -2, it probably should be -3. See if it was minus, but then I reckon if it was -3, it'd probably put me off.
Yeah.
But because it's -2.5, that's why it becomes one that I sort of think to myself, that is the bet to go down. And I think if you are within the field goal, I always think you go to the minus rather than the plus if you're under the 3 sort of thing, and the other way around if you're over the 3. So that's why it kind of feels like, on a sort of like an analytical point of view, it feels like the Texans is the right bet to have. But it's I think not only is it that they're just, I would argue, the better team all round, but the numbers kind of make sense as well. So I just sort of feel like that's probably why they will win. But yeah, they'll probably get hammered now, won't they? So
I think we'll see this number move back out again. I think it's one of them where, like you say, when it's
possibly,
if it was 3.5, everyone's hammering the Colts. It's coming now to 2.5, and I think everyone's now going to hammer the Texans, and it level back out before the games kick off tomorrow.
Yeah.
So one quick one before we move on. A game that's got everybody stumped at which one they want to pick. It's very, very 50 split between everyone, including all the bookies. Vikings Giants. Just a quick one. Which one do you like in it, and where would you put your money in this one? Because I think the Vikings are going to struggle big time this year.
I don't like either of them.
Hey, it's like I said, it's the biggest divide. You got to put your money on one side.
I don't like either of them. I think I'd probably veer towards the Giants, but
that's all we need to know. You don't need any analysis on that one. Just it's the 50-50 split where you're putting your money. I've gone Giants as well, funny enough. Adam, what are some of the better bets that you can have during the season? You've looked through them all. You've seen something. Where should we be putting our money?
Yeah, so I was having a look, and you came out and said to me you wanted big odds, and
Not
I was a little
odds,
bit like
better than these odds, better than even.
Yeah. With that, what the problem is when you start getting past the 10 to 11s, you have got big odds. So I was looking at them, and I sort of thought what I might do for this is, obviously it's predominantly going to be touchdown scorers is where this is going to go. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a cap on this for myself, where it has to be 2 to 1 or bigger.
Mm-hmm.
for it. That's kind of my logic for it. So I've got a few that I've seen. I quite like the look of. They're not in our, because we do our touchdown trebles later. Not going to be involved in them, but these are the ones that I
Might be
kind
in
of.
mine, eh?
They might be in yours, but not involved in my ones. So first of all, for the Jags, I've gone Brian Thomas. Already spoken about how much I think that he's a good bet this week. I think going up against the Dolphins defense that isn't fantastic in the secondary as well. I know they got Jalen Ramsey, but after that it's a bit not great. 12-5. I thought that was a fairly decent price for Brian Thomas. He's a solid one to go for. For the Atlanta Falcons, I've gone for Kyle Pitts at 2-1. Now he's come back
Is he definitely playing?
Yeah, he was a full participant at practice on Friday. He's 2-1 for this. I think you've got Kirk Cousins is just going to throw the ball a lot more than what they've had before. They've got that, the from the Rams. I can't remember his name. The new head coach.
Raheem Morris.
Sorry, not Raheem Morris. Sorry, the OC. He's from the Rams as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he is from the Rams.
I can't remember who, but basically it's all coming from the Rams, the way that they play. So I think there's going to be a bit more passing involved. I think that Kyle Pitts at 2-1 is a solid price for that. Zach Robinson, that's it. We're going to go. I got a quarterback sneak just because I know that you love a QB sneak in here. For the Bengals against the Patriots, we've gone for Joe Burrow. He likes to do the odd quarterback sneak. And I think to a certain degree, I think he's going to want to prove that he's fit. So I can see that Joe Burrow might get in there and have a little QB sneak at 15-4. That's a bigger price, that one. So do like the look of Joe Burrow for this particular week against the Patriots side, which I think is going to struggle quite a lot this year. It's probably the nicest way to put it.
Yeah.
Next one up for the Titans, we spoke about the fact that they are going up against, who are they? They're playing the Bears. I think the Bears are going to put some points on them and they're going to have to come back. Will Levis loves to throw the ball long. I think that Calvin Ridley at 12-5 is a pretty decent bet, over 2-1. So yeah, I like the look of him. And then a couple of bigger ones that I'm not 100% sold on. To keep it on the Titans again. Tajay Spears at 100-30. I think he's not being. It's interesting. Pollard is much shorter, yet they seem to be sharing the snaps pretty much 50-50.
I think Pollard's going to get a lot of the goal line work, isn't he? He's going to get a lot of rushing work. And Spears is going to get the third downs and passing plays. So I think if you're talking red zone, there's more chance Pollard might be on the field for it, but equally, Spears has a great chance of being on the field for a third down in the red zone. So
yeah,
it's
to me, it's more the price difference between the two. I feel like it's gone rather extreme, where Pollard is incredibly short, whereas for Spears is very big. So to me, I just kind of felt like the price was quite good for Spears. And then finally, for the Raiders, Brock Bowers at 3-1. I'm not saying that he's going to be fantastic first game of the season and all that, but when I look at the pass catching options, to me, it's Devontae Adams is the obvious one. And then I think Brock Bowers is probably going to end up being number 2 pretty quickly. Gardner Minshew, not amazing, but at the same time, he put up some decent scores and some points for when he was playing for the Colts. And yeah, I think that this Chargers defense is gettable. You can get points on them. And so I think that Bowers at 3-1 is a decent price.
One quick one I just wanted to get your opinion on because I noticed it. Everyone's been saying that, well, the depth chart says that Gus Edwards is the RB1 for the team. He's going to be the starter. But J.K. Dobbins is the favourite for a touchdown out of everyone in this game. Does that shock you a little bit that it's not Edwards over Dobbins?
Yeah, a little bit. And again, with the pricing as well, I'm surprised it's not more equal. I would have thought you could have both of them up the top at like 7-4 or something like that. The fact that it's 6-4 for Dobbins, 9-4 for Edwards feels slightly odd. And the other thing is that I I don't know how you feel about it, but I would have thought that Gus Edwards would be the goal line.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, the big
that.
guys are going to run down the middle. You know, if
Yeah.
it's first and goal, and you know they're on the 2-3 yard line, it's going to be Gus Edwards, surely.
Yeah. So the 9-4 about Gus Edwards is something that it's not too bad. My only concern is the fact that you're going up against that Raiders front line. And they are going to be strong, and so that is the issue with that one. But yeah, it's slightly odd. I don't know why they would have done it like that. I don't know if it's a preseason thing, whether they've seen something maybe. But I mean, we see things in preseason and they get thrown out the window straight away. So I would have thought that Gus Edwards would be the goal line back and would have more chance of scoring myself.
Mm-hmm. Now, well, was there any other ones, or should we move on to
No, that was it.
On to the trebles then. Do you want to talk us through what we could do an early game one and then we do a late game one? I found the late game ones very hard to do. But the early fixtures, Adam, plenty of them to pick from. Who have you got and what are the odds?
Yeah, so I've gone for 3 wide receivers in the early one. So I have got Tank Dell for the Houston Texans against the Colts. I think this is going to be one of the highest scoring games of the week. I know that there's lots of options now for CJ Stroud, but I think that Dow is going to be used just as much as he was last year, and I think he'll be pretty good. So he's 21-10. So I like the look of him. Gone for Tyreek Hill for the Dolphins. I think that's going to be a fairly obvious one myself, going up against the Jags. He's 4-5. And then finally, DJ Moore, I think will, again, it's another team with a lot of options now, but I just think he will show out to be the number one guy in the receiving core of the Bears, and he's 13-8. So if you put all three together, it's 13.64.
Yeah, I think DJ Moore will be the wide receiver one. I think Rome Odunze will be playing to play out Keenan Allen, won't he? That'll be the one there. Nice odds on that as well. Might have a little dabble on that myself. I've gone with a guy that we've already mentioned. We said he's going to be quite a big guy in the receiving game for this team potentially. It's Dalton Kincaid at 7-5 against the Cardinals. I think he might lean on him if it is struggling with those wideouts early, and I think he's going to be there in the end zone waiting to catch it as well when it's red zone plays. So Dalton Kincaid for me. Then I've gone with a slightly different one from the Texans. I think Nico Collins is the guy. I think he's the stud. I think, yes, Tank Dell's going to get a lot of work through the middle and moving the chains. But I think when it comes to the end zone, he's the bigger guy. He's got bigger jump. I just think Nico Collins is going to be there to haul in the touchdown for it. And then my last one, there's got to be someone who scores in this game, and I'm not confident it might be a wide receiver. So I've gone for Devin Singletary at the Giants, I think, at 8-5. It's not going to be 0-0, surely. And I think, if anything, it's going to be a running back that scores. So I quite like the odds of 8-5 on Singletary in this game. And that comes out at 15.22 to 1. Adam, do you think that Singletary one's just ruined a good bet, or do you think would you get on it?
I think like you say, someone has to score. You got to think, and I do wonder if it might be the running backs of them. It could be Aaron Jones on the other side as well. So I think you might find that is what will happen, because the pass catching options, obviously Justin Jefferson, but Sam Darnold, you're not expecting too much from. So, yeah, I don't mind it. I think the Singletary's a decent bet. I do agree with you with Collins. I think he's probably going to be the obvious first target for CJ Stroud. I just think that, it's one of them on the prices. That's the issue. I just felt like that Collins was a bit short compared to what Tank Dell was. And yeah, like Kincaid, it's just going to be whether he gets touchdowns or not. I think that could be his downfall this year. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they'll probably get to draw some knocks, won't they, just to annoy me?
Well, I think I think this the OC they've got in there now is very much run first all the time, and I just wonder. Kincaid feels like a red zone target, and I just wonder whether or not it's just going to be run because you've got Cook and you've got Davis and you've got Allen. That's the only issue.
And I'll go first on the evening ones. As I said, I really struggled with the evening fixtures to put someone in and get the odds decent as well. So I've gone with Jackson Smith and Jigba at the Seahawks, my first one, 13-8. Lockett's still injured, still recovering. I don't think is he even playing? Is he going to have some snaps?
I think they said he is, but he's not going to be doing too much.
So I think they'll work in Jigba more. I think DK Metcalf.
Can I ask when did you do this treble?
Today.
Right. Okay. He was 2-1 last night.
Okay.
So that probably says a lot about Lockett then.
Then I've got Jake Ferguson at the Cowboys. We've said they've not got a lot outside of CeeDee Lamb for this, and I do think I've gone with the Cowboys to win this one against everybody else's judgment. So I think if you're going to go somewhere that isn't Lamb, it's Ferguson for me. So I think he's got a good chance of getting in the end zone for a touchdown at 15-8. And then lastly, just to maybe a safe one, I don't know. I've gone with Mike Evans, 11-10 to get a touchdown against the Commanders. That brings me in at 14.84 to 1. So nearly that 15 to 1 again. So yeah, I think that one's got a good chance.
Yeah, I think you have got a good chance with it. JSN was close for me. I looked at him, especially at 2 when I saw him. He was 2-1 last night, and I was like, yeah, he's not too bad. My concern was that they were saying that Lockett was coming back, and I'm just not. I think the Seahawks, a lot of people are sold on them this year. They think they're going to improve a lot, and I'm just not too sure. I think JSN will get involved a lot more than what he did last year. I'm not sure.
I think their offense is extremely talented. 2 excellent running backs, a decent O-line now with some good youngsters. We've never had a problem with any of their wide receivers. They've got 3 of the best, and then they've now brought in a head coach that knows how to sort the defense out. So I think that's why people are a bit more on them. I mean, I quite like the Broncos in this one as well. I think they'll improve massively this year as well. But
they can't get any worse.
True.
My treble, I have got Ken Walker for going for the Seahawks at 4-5. As you say, I think they will improve, and I think the run game will improve quite a lot as well. So I think Ken Walker's a good solid one in the late games. I've gone Devontae Adams at 11-5. I just think that he's the difference, isn't he? I think no matter how disgruntled or annoyed he is, I think he's still going to be quality. And I think that Gardner Minshew he's not as bad as what a lot of people think he is. So I think that he'll be solid and get the ball to his number 1 target. And then finally, I have also gone for Jake Ferguson for the Dallas Cowboys. It's CeeDee Lamb and him when it comes to the receiving game. Dak hasn't really got anyone else to throw it to of any real note. So I think Ferguson is going to be one of them guys this year who will do pretty well. And, the only thing that puts me off Ferguson is the fact that I backed him so much last year and he never got in the end zone. That was the issue. But, I mean, you're looking. I mean, what is there? Brandon Cooks and Jalen Tolbert. Is that
3-1 and Tolbert at 4-1? Brandon Cooks isn't a bad bet. As the season went on, he did start getting in the end zone a little bit, didn't he? But
yeah. I mean, you're going up against a tough defense here in the Browns. I don't think they're going to give up too much. So yeah, I think that it's going to be Lamb and Ferguson are going to be the 2 main ones. So yeah, Walker, Adams, and Ferguson, 15.56 to 1.
That's some decent odds for the first week. It's anybody's game, so they could come in. to all be around that 15-14 mark for all of them. And, you know, you usually come on this and go, here's your bet. It's 6-1 on a treble. So
it's very, yeah, it is difficult to find them at decent odds, but we had a fair few hit last year, so hopefully we'll keep that going. And it'd be nice to get off to a start, but the one thing I will say is historically it normally takes a few weeks before we get anywhere.
Yeah, you know, well, that's the same with the NFL, really, isn't it? The week
Yeah.
one is anybody's game. Week two, we write some people off straight away, and then by week three, they're off and running. I think we wrote your Green Bay Packers off early last year, didn't we? And then look how they finished. So
yeah, you might be writing them off early this year and all now. So
I don't think so. I think they'll still be good. Well, that's it for week one. Hopefully, we've got some winners in there. We will be back next week to talk about them and give you all of our odds for next week as well. But till then, keep it with the franchise tag and see you very soon.